Hello and welcome to Fidelity Next, our webcast that helps take you to the next level of your career. I'm your host, Tamara Badashai. Today we're diving into another iteration of our Ask a Recruiter series, looking at some good and bad questions to ask in an interview. What makes a question good or bad? And how do you approach it based on your area of expertise? With us in the studio today answering these questions is staffing specialist Malika Nasser. If you have any questions for us throughout the discussion, please drop them in the comments and we'll get back to you after the show. Malika, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to dive in. We're gonna talk about questions you would ask a recruiter or hiring manager when you're in an interview. You know, typically in an interview, you have some time at the end or the second half to ask your questions. So we're gonna go through some questions that are good or bad, and you're going to tell us why they're good or bad, how you would approach them if you're, in marketing or finance or operations, or, how to tweak and make them more specific, and maybe give us some examples.
That's good.
But first, tell us about yourself. What do you do at Fidelity? Why do you love working here?
Yeah, for sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a staffing specialist here at Fidelity, but my journey actually started a while ago. I first came to Fidelity as a co-op student. I was with the corporate affairs team. I then ended up returning for a second term in talent acquisition. I really love the culture, love Fidelity, so I ended up coming back full-time as an HR coordinator and now a staffing specialist on the team. So essentially in my role, I handle full cycle recruitment. I also help attract top talent to Fidelity across multiple divisions. And so it's really rewarding. I love talking to candidates every day, learning about their background, their experiences. So I really do love what I do, and I'm excited to dive right into it today.
Amazing. Well, we're in good hands, obviously. So we're going to start with the good. I'm going to make it obvious whether we're talking about good or bad questions, but we'll start off with some good examples of good questions to ask, and you can tell us why. So first typical good question is, what does success look like in the first 3, 6, and 9 months?
So definitely this is a great question. It's definitely a classic. It comes up quite a bit at the end of our interviews for good reason. But maybe I'll just start as to, why it is a good question to ask. I would say because, this really signals to the panel or the hiring team that you want to be a good performer. So you're really looking to not just, do the job, but you will actually want to do well in the role and give the team those positive outcomes. So definitely great question to ask. To kind of give you an example of how you can frame it or maybe tailor it specifically to the role that you've applied for. Maybe I'll give an example as like a processing representative. So if you're directly, applying for a role like this, maybe you want to word the question a little bit more specifically, like which process outcomes should I be familiarized with in the next 30 or 60 days? So it shows that you've done your research, you've read the job description, you know what the role entails, but now you just want to know what that further success looks like in the role specifically. So definitely, I think, and you'll see the theme kind of coming along here in my answers, is do your research, but also customize your questions. This shows that you are, ready to go. You've done your research, you want to join, and you're really interested in the company as well. So yeah, that's what I would kind of recommend for that first one.
Great. Okay, next good question. What are the biggest challenges or pain points that your team is dealing with right now?
Another really good question. I like this one because it shows you're taking on more of a problem-solving mindset, right? So you are looking to address maybe any needs or gaps for the team. And so I think it's great because, again, you're showing that you're not afraid of taking on challenges, right? And a lot of the times, teams are hiring because they're looking to maybe fill gaps, or they're looking for someone to kind of bring a new mindset or new thoughts into the position as well. So again, when you're framing this question, I'll take an example of, a finance role. So maybe you're applying to be a financial analyst. Maybe you want to specify the question here to, really ask, what are the challenges your team is facing when it comes to meeting stakeholder needs, or maybe dealing with market volatility, and where does my role come in terms of mitigating some of those challenges? So again, what the role entails, you've done your research, and it's a little bit more customizable here. You're also going to get a more specific answer back. So that helps you too to really understand, if I do end up joining this team, how am I going to get started and help the team right away? So really ask this question, but focus on good progress. These are the needs, these are the challenges, and this is what I'm personally going to do to help address some of those needs for the team.
Amazing. Plus, when you're future focused, that plants a psychological seed in their brain that you're actually going to be there with them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, next on the good side.
Yeah.
How is the team structured and how do you partner with stakeholders?
Yes, so another really good question, and you probably know here at Fidelity, we're not siloed, so we work very closely with a lot of different teams, right? So this question does come up because if you're in a specific team, let's say with marketing or with finance, you're probably collaborating with stakeholders in products, in other divisions as well. So it's good for you as a candidate to understand who am I going to be communicating with on a day-to-day basis. So it helps you as a candidate, but also this question, shows to the team that you are willing to kind of, have that teamwork approach. You want to collaborate and get to know others within the organization as well. So there are a couple of ways you can go about these questions. The first one is to ask about the team structure, right? So what's the hierarchy? How many people are in the team, just so you kind of get that general idea. And then the second part of it, again, is the stakeholder piece, right? So maybe you can ask the team, if I am the successful candidate in this role, which stakeholders will I be collaborating or communicating with on a daily basis? And what can I do to help build those relationships or strengthen those relationships? So really you're forward thinking as if you're in the role, like you mentioned. And you also get that insight as to who you'll be working with and if it's a good personal fit for you as well.
Yeah. Who has the most sway?
Yeah, exactly.
Who do you need to convince?
Yep.
Great. I love this question. This is a great question for hiring managers, but what is your leadership style and how do you like to communicate with your team? Yeah,
so good question as well. And again, as a candidate, it's good to know who are you as a hiring manager, right? So when you ask this question, again, you're signaling to the hiring team, I'm interested in also, looking at what your approach is. How do you want me to communicate in your team? How would you manage me if I am the successful candidate? So sometimes this question, it can go either way. We can just ask what's your leadership style, but again, you're not going to get much of a detailed answer. I think it's good to kind of take it a step further and ask, how do you communicate with your team, right? So for example, if you're in an IT role, for example, maybe that manager prefers to have daily stand-up meetings or stand-up calls, whereas another team, maybe in marketing or products, they prefer weekly updates, maybe even sometimes bi-weekly updates. So each manager is going to have their own flair and how they like to communicate with their team. So this will kind of give you that information ahead of time. And then also just knowing, how does my manager want me to communicate if I'm the successful candidate? Should I be sending them, a bunch of updates, or should I maybe go about my day and kind of let them know what's going on at the end and, do like a summary? So I think that's helpful as well for you as a candidate, but definitely, a great question, and it does come up quite a bit as well.
Plus, it indirectly gives you an idea of how the team works, too, right?
Exactly.
Like what is day in the life.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, another good question. What do opportunities for growth and development look like?
So I'd have to say this is one of my favorite questions. I also sometimes, like to go into my past experience as, previously being a co-op here at Fidelity. But as you know, here at Fidelity, we really do prioritize career vitality, right? So when you're asking this question, you are telling the hiring team, I'm in it for the long run. I love Fidelity. I want to grow within Fidelity. I have that career progression in mind, right? And oftentimes you'll get a really good answer because you can have, real life examples that will be listed to you so you can realize, oh, the team really has grown and how you maybe would fit into that picture, right? So maybe when you're framing this question, again, you could ask the team or the hiring manager themselves, what did your career progression look like? How did you start here at Fidelity, as opposed to the role that you're in now? Or you can maybe also ask what the typical hierarchy looks like. So for each role, it's going to be a little bit different, right? So for example, on the processing side, you maybe would start in a more junior role, kind of work your way up to a senior, maybe a team manager. We have lots of those stories here at Fidelity as well. And then also for, different divisions, it will vary for sure in terms of that progression. But I do think it's a great question to ask because what you can expect in terms of starting maybe in one role and then maybe getting a promotion down the line, moving laterally, whatever is, fitting your needs and long-term goals.
Great. Another good one. Walk me through a typical week, what that might look like, or day in the life.
Yeah, so definitely this question is good, but I think it's how you frame it. Because oftentimes this question might automatically be answered at the beginning of the interview. So we usually start our interviews with a quick introduction from the hiring team, and they'll usually walk you through what the day looks like or what a typical week looks like. So you might get that question already answered, from the get-go. Also the job description, we usually try to break that down as well. So instead of maybe just generally asking what does a typical week look like, maybe you want to specify it again to the role. So for example, in marketing, maybe you want to ask, where's my time going to be allocated? Is it maybe 50% within social media, 50% within digital communication, kind of give that breakdown. So again, showing, yes, I've done my research on the role, I know what I'm going to be doing, but what does specific time allocation look like? That way it's a little bit more specific and you're not just maybe repeating what maybe the manager already told you earlier or what's in the job description from beforehand.
Okay, great. And our final good question, which is specific to recruiters.
Yes.
What does the recruitment process look like and what is the best way to follow up?
Yeah, so definitely I would recommend asking this question at the very end. So maybe leaving off with this question. I wouldn't necessarily count it as a core question just because it's more so like a quick follow-up. So usually the recruiter will kind of step in and answer this question as opposed to the hiring team. But why it's good, it shows that you are proactive. You're eager to find out, what are the next steps? When will I hear back? And so usually myself as a recruiter, I'll usually mention you'll hear back within a specific time frame. If you want to go a step further, not necessarily on that question route, but you can always send a thank you email. We do get those sometimes as well to the recruiter that will pass it along to the team. So that again really shows your gratitude and that you're excited for the opportunity as well.
Okay, great. Over to the bad side of things.
Yes.
How much does this pay?
Yeah, so usually we say there are no bad questions, but sometimes,
Right.
there are questions you might want to avoid in an interview. So for sure, definitely when it comes to pay, this is a question you maybe want to discuss beforehand. So before coming into the interview, just to make sure that you're aligned, with the role itself. When you ask this question, it's a little bit surface level and it's more on the logistical side of things. So while it's valid, maybe save that question to ask maybe directly to the recruiter before or after the interview. You can take it offline, but we really want to showcase to the team that I'm not just interested in maybe, the logistics or the salary. I really am interested in the role itself. So I definitely recommend not asking it at that point in time. You only have 10 to 15 minutes to ask all your questions. So I would recommend saving it for those core questions that are going to help you, make a decision about the team as well.
Or even in the follow-up email, right?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Don't waste time on it in your interview.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, next. What does the company do?
Yeah, so this one, again, definitely want to avoid it. Again, it comes along with your preparation. So I know we've spoken about preparation quite a bit, but that's something that you want to do beforehand. Research the company, not just the role, right? So maybe you've read the job description and now you're going on our company website, looking at some of our products, our product offerings. And then we also have, of course, FCC, so Fidelity Clearing Canada, knowing that differentiation as well is going to be helpful. So if you have specifics about the company that maybe you're unsure about, definitely, you can bring that up. But I wouldn't recommend kind of framing it as, what does the company do? A little bit too general and doesn't show that preparation.
Okay. And next is, can I work 100% remotely?
Yeah, definitely a question as well. I think I've gotten that in the past, but again, it is valid. We do have a number of individuals on different work schedules, so it makes sense to ask this question. However, this is again something you want to take offline, more logistical. Usually, the hiring team won't answer this question anyway. They'll direct it to me as a recruiter to answer. So I'm happy to have those conversations as well as a recruiter, but again, not during the actual interview.
Also, I think a lot of these things are in the job descriptions, so it also signals that you did not fully read the job description.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, we have it bolded at the top.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Okay, next. Can I take my vacation right away?
Yeah, so, of course, it depends on the role and things like that. But again, that's more so something that I would answer as a recruiter as opposed to the hiring team. So, again, I'm happy to kind of take that offline. But again, save your time for some of those more questions that are thought-provoking, that's going to get the hiring team excited. They probably don't want to know about any vacation schedules right away. Or, they probably don't really want to get into those types of topics. So, again, I would recommend something more so to directly discuss with the recruiter maybe during the phone screen stage.
Yeah, so excited to work here. It's time to get out of here.
Yeah,
right? Looking forward to that even more.
Exactly. Got to be careful with that one for sure.
And finally, not asking any questions at all.
Yeah, so this one you definitely want to avoid. You just want to show that, you're interested in hearing from the hiring team. You just took maybe an hour answering all questions directed at you. This is really your time to ask your questions. I'm sure you have some burning questions that you've been wanting to ask the team. So really take this time to do that. Let's say all of your questions end up, getting answered maybe during the introduction or throughout the interview. I say always come prepared with at least maybe 2 to 3 core questions that you can have the hiring team expand on, or you can even mention, I know you spoke about this earlier, but I'd like to follow up and ask a more detailed question. So always come prepared with some questions regardless, and don't recommend saying that you don't have any, because this is really your time, so we want to hear from you as well.
Even if you don't, you do.
Exactly,
right.
Exactly.
So to end on a more positive note, and this speaks directly to what you were just saying. If you had to pick only 3 questions, if you have maybe only 5 minutes at the end, if you're, the interview ran a little bit later, what are 3 questions that you would choose?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that growth question, I really like that one. So again, asking if I am the successful candidate in this role, what do further growth opportunities look like? What is that career progression? Again, tailoring it to the role. And then also that success question. So what does success look like specifically for me in my role? What does good outcomes look like? And then last but not least, I would probably recommend asking the one about the stakeholder management and structure as well. Again, kind of like we spoke about, it's showing that you want to know the stakeholders you're going to be collaborating with, what that overall structure is, to give you a better idea of your personal fit at Fidelity as well. So those are the top 3, but again, not just asking them as they are, kind of tailoring it and customizing it is going to help you, and it'll go a long way in making you stand out as well.
And what would you say is like a winning formula to craft a really good question?
Yeah, so as you're preparing for the interview, you're looking at the job description, you're looking at the role, but then also take that time, like you said, to think about those questions that you're going to ask as well. So a formula that I would recommend is maybe anchor, ask, and then probe. So if we think about the anchor, that's essentially going back to maybe what you've already read or heard from the team. So as I read from the job description, or as you mentioned earlier on in the interview, and then ask, this is your core question. What are the pain points your team is currently facing, or what does success look like in this role? So you're getting to the core of the question, and then ending off with probe. So this is really where you come in, right? Where do I as a candidate help identify some of those gaps, or where do I as a candidate kind of come in to help the team maybe move towards their long-term goals, right? So again, you're specifying it in that probe portion. So yeah, I would say anchor, ask, and probe. Kind of keep that formula in mind to help you think of some of those questions you can bring to the table.
That's a great way to look at it. Thank you for that. And one final question for you. You said you were a co-op student at Fidelity, so you have experience, getting into it as a student, being here as a student, obviously, staying full-time. What would you say to students watching right now? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, definitely. And, I think myself being a student, I was looking for advice, and I really wanted to, hear from others within the organization to kind of understand what led them to stay at Fidelity long term. So I'd say a piece of advice is to just really put yourself out there. As a student, maybe we can be a little bit more guarded. Maybe we're entering the business or the real life world for the first time. And so we really want to put ourselves out there and make those connections. Have those coffee chats, meet with people in not only your direct team, but everyone across Fidelity is super welcoming and helpful. So I think having those conversations, asking questions, that's going to be super helpful. And then you also get that idea of the overall Fidelity culture. So for myself, I realized this is a place I want to be long term. I absolutely love the culture and the people, and that's what essentially made me want to come back. So yeah, put yourself out there and ask those questions. And you're a student, as a co-op student, you're there to learn. So soaking everything up, that's what I did. And that's what I would kind of recommend for that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Malika, so much for joining us. Big thumbs up for me for all your insights. Great chatting with you.
Thank you, Tamira. It was so nice to be here. I appreciate you taking the time.
Of course. Thanks to everyone for joining us on today's episode of Fidelity Next. If you want to catch a replay of this episode, you can find it on Fidelity Canada's YouTube channel under the Fidelity Next playlist. There you'll also find past episodes covering a number of topics, including more recruiter insights from this series. You can also find us anywhere you get your podcasts if you prefer to just listen. And if you're curious about a career at Fidelity Canada, You can explore our open roles at careers.fidelity.ca. Thanks again for joining the discussion today, and we'll see you on the next episode.